Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Nathan Stelter, president here at the Stelter Company, and thanks as always for joining us for our webinar today. As I was mentioning to the panel prior to this, I am super excited about this one. John Kendrick and I had discussed this panel idea about a year ago, and it's finally here. So our discussion today is indeed going to be a panel discussion, legacy challenges, success stories, and lessons learned with four amazing professionals in this industry and spanning several nonprofit sectors. They're going to provide insights to what made the recent legacy challenges successful and what they would do differently, perhaps in the future as well. I'll get to introducing the session in just a quick minute, but do want to, while I have your attention, just share a couple things about the webinar series. Many of you are already familiar with, but as an expert advocate for asset-based giving, Stelter is committed to providing innovative solutions and education for the nonprofit industry. We pride ourselves for being a bridge builder in this community and are happy to host this free webinar today, connecting you to a great group of experts from across the country to assist you in your efforts to maximize revenue across your development portfolio. Today's webinar is actually our seventh of our 2024 series. We have one more on the calendar for this year, and that'll be coming up November 11th with the infamous Pamela Jones Davidson. As always, look for your personal invitation in your inbox as the date draws near. And if you've missed any of our previous webinars this year or from years past, you can always view those recordings and download information at stelter.com/webinars. Now back to today's webinar, and I have the esteemed pleasure to introduce John Kendrick, who's going to be the moderator for this great group. John, if you don't know him, is a longtime friend, great person. Even though in retirement, he's not really retired either. He's continuing to help others across the industry and currently serving as the principal consultant for John B. Kendrick Philanthropic Consulting, as well as senior consultant with Michael J. Worth and Associates. John's an experienced plan giving leader, led the plan giving fundraising efforts at George Washington University from 2008 to 2020. Helping the university raise $196 million of new attainment in the $1 billion Making History campaign and over $300 million during his tenure at the university. Just amazing work. Following, as I had mentioned, his retirement, quote unquote, from full-time work at GW, John has been engaged as a consultant by nonprofit organizations spanning higher ed, secondary education, healthcare, the arts, wildlife, conservation, public policy, information tech, and religion and tourism, a little bit of everything. His main focus is helping organizations build high-performing development and plan giving programs. And this includes the evaluation of existing programs, assistance with building enhanced programs, and coaching of plan giving directors of staff. And an area of expertise and why John is going to be moderating this terrific panel day is really around design and implementation of legacy challenges. And so excited to hand off the reins for the next 70 minutes or so to John Kendrick.
Well, thank you very much, Nathan. It is terrific to be here. I want to wish everyone a good afternoon if you're in the Eastern and Central time zones, and a good morning if you're out in the Mountain and Pacific time zones. During the webinar, we really hope that you'll gain some great insights for running your own legacy challenges. If you're interested in pursuing such a program in the future, we've got some terrific panelists, as Nathan mentioned, in a wide variety of nonprofit areas, ranging from educational to religious organizations, and from cultural and scientific organizations to hospitals and healthcare. Here's a quick overview of the webinar, as you can see on your screen. I'm going to introduce the panel in just a second. Then I'll give a brief overview of legacy challenges to make sure that we're all on the same page, using similar terminology and so forth. After that, each panelist will give their own success story of the legacy challenge that they have either recently completed or are in the process right now of completing. Then we'll go on to lessons learned and discuss not only what made things successful and what was rewarding, but also some of the challenges we faced and challenges that you should be aware of if you decide to run a program like this. And then we want to leave plenty of time, about a half an hour, hopefully, we'll see, for questions and answers so we can attempt to do our best to answer all of your questions. So on the next slide, we're going to now introduce the panel. I'm not going to read every bullet point. Let's go on to John Jensen, but I will give a sort of a high-level summary of their distinctions. John Jensen is Director of Plan Giving for the Washington National Cathedral. He's worked in plan giving and development for 40 years. He's a Distinguished Service Award winner from the National Capital Gift Planning Council. He served 300 national charities, or mostly national charities, for 25 years in the middle of his career as a plan giving consultant. And he's a real mainstay of the plan giving community in Washington, D.C. So thank you, John, for joining us today. Our next panelist, Kara Barnes, has been a senior gift planning officer at the Smithsonian Institution for the past year. Now I'm going to go off script for 1 second, simply to say that I was so excited to read and to see on the news last night that the National Zoo, which is part of the Smithsonian, has just welcomed 2 brand new giant pandas. And I know there'll be a lot of happy families and adults all across the country today. So get out there and be sure to visit the Smithsonian. Previously, Kara served several Washington, D.C. area nonprofits with great distinction, including American University, where she helped to launch and run a very successful legacy challenge, in addition to the Smithsonian program she'll be talking about today. And she's served at National Public Radio and the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And our final panelist, Kent Alley, is Director of Plan Giving for Episcopal High School, which is the leading co-ed boarding high school in Alexandria, Virginia. Kent also had a leadership role at the Kent School in the greater New York City area, and he worked for a dozen years as a news writer and field producer and assignment editor for ABC News. And finally, I'm your moderator. I'm going to refer to 2 Legacy Challenge programs that I helped to run at George Washington University, and to a Legacy Challenge I assisted with as a consultant at the Virginia Hospital Center Foundation. So moving on, what are Legacy Challenges? Well, they are matching gift programs that focus on raising planned gifts. Unlike traditional matches, donors can secure current matching funds based on the future gifts they intend to make. And if you think about this, this is really rather extraordinary. I think most of us for many years have been aware of the NPR and public broadcasting challenges, and these days, all the political campaigns who offer a dollar for dollar match, or sometimes multiples of that, for a current gift. You make a gift and your cause gets a benefit. Well, in this case, the donor, if they are really passionate about an organization, they can secure matching funds for no out-of-pocket costs, no out-of-pocket assets, no out-of-pocket commitment currently, but a commitment to make a gift in the future. So third bullet point here, that's very motivational to donors to create new planned gifts. And also, and this is important for many organizations, it's very motivational to document existing planned gifts that they haven't told you about, or that they haven't told you about in terms of the amount. And for some organizations, they find it very powerful if donors can direct matching funds to specific areas of interest rather than to just a general common operating fund. And next, why do legacy challenges work? Want to just dig into this just for a minute, and you will see examples of this as you listen to the panelists over the course of the webinar. But they are certainly motivating for donors all along the plan giving continuum. Donors with documented planned gifts, your current Legacy Society, your Heritage Society members might consider making another gift. Often, I think it's very true that your best plan giving prospects are your current plan giving donors. So many will consider making another gift. Another set of prospects who are motivated are donors who have planned gifts, but haven't documented them. They haven't told you about them. But here, this challenge comes along and they realize, oh, okay, if I do document and tell you about the planned gift, you're going to benefit from this matching fund that generous lead donors have contributed, and they want to take advantage of that. Thirdly, it's effective with donors who are considering planned gifts, but have not yet updated their plans. And I know that many of you are working with many of these types of donors. They're interested, but it's nobody's favorite task to go meet with their estate planning attorney. It takes time, it takes money. It's not even that pleasant to go online and change a beneficiary designation for a retirement plan. So this challenge can help stimulate those people to go ahead, and it's not that hard. Go ahead and get going on that. And finally, the legacy challenges can be very motivational for people who had not really considered a planned gift in the past, but they hear about the challenge, they think about how much they care for your institution, and they think, well, why not? Let's go ahead and set up a planned gift. More reasons, two more, why legacy challenges work. They can leverage the ability of limited matching funds, and for some programs, the need to act before the deadline. Having a deadline in planned giving is pretty powerful because most people don't feel a strong urgency to get this done on any particular time frame. That is, as you know, why when people are going on vacation sometimes overseas, that will spur them on because they do feel a sense of urgency. This legacy challenge provides a sense of urgency. And if there's a limited pool, which in every case, I think there will be, of matching funds, if the pool is almost used up, that, or if they're concerned that it might become used up, that spurs them on to act. And finally, just a comment, many organizations have had outstanding results. You're going to hear from several today, but success isn't guaranteed. Difficulties might arise. And we think that hearing these stories today can help you be prepared. Moving on to the next slide. Key items to consider and decide. Again, you're going to get lots of thoughts and answers as you hear the panelists, but just briefly, what are the goals for your program? What strategies are you going to employ? Where will the matching funds come from? That's a key question. Where can donors direct matching funds? Is it going to just be to endowment, perhaps, to the operating fund, to any existing fund? And that does make a great difference, and it'll certainly need to be customized for your organization. What size matching pool will motivate your prospect base? If you're a small nonprofit, you can run a very successful legacy challenge with a relatively small pool of matching money. On the other hand, if you're Harvard or a large institution with a long track record of success and large gifts, you might need to have a much larger matching pool. How will the match be structured? We'll talk about that. Will your organization's leadership and development team support this? We hope that some of the information you gain today will be effective in helping you to sell the program internally, if that's what you choose to do. And finally, is the existing marketing budget sufficient, or will you need more funds? A lot of organizations have simply taken their current marketing budgets and emphasized the legacy challenge for a period of time. So they haven't had to get a big increase in funding but from the organization. Want to give a quick example of how a legacy challenge works. Let me preface this by saying I first became very excited about legacy challenges back in about 2015, 2016, when I read an article in the PG Calc newsletter about the ACLU and EDF and how they had more than doubled, and in one case almost had a 5-fold increase in planned gifts because of their legacy challenge, and that these levels were holding after the challenge had ended. I thought if we could even do a fraction of that at GW, where I was at the time, that it would certainly be worthwhile trying. So we did try. We frankly borrowed this graphic and modified it a bit from the ACLU for GW's purposes. This was for a challenge we ran in 2017. You'll see later that other organizations are continuing to do variations of this graphic, but it helps to explain it quite well. For a donor, you would document your planned gift using some sort of a gift confirmation form. Then there would be matching funds that are generated because of your documentation of your gift. In the case of GW, the gift amount or the match amount was 10% of the value of the planned gift up to a cap of $10,000. So that meant for a gift up to $100,000, if you made a $100,000 gift, the organization would get $10,000, 10% right away in matching funds from that matching pool. If somebody made $1 million planned gift, they would still generate a match, but it would be limited to that cap of $10,000. And you'll hear later that there have been many people, despite the cap of only being 10,000, who have gone ahead and documented $1 million bequests and larger. So what does this mean? What does it translate to for your organization, or in this case for GW? An immediate impact to the donor's area of interest at GW, because GW did allow the donor to direct the funds to any existing, the matching funds to any existing fund at the university. And lastly, in the future, a huge multiple effect, because when the planned gift actually comes to fruition, it'll be at least 10 times the amount of the matching funds that comes to the organization and benefits them in the future. So that's a simple example. I want to just share a couple other examples, because you'll hear that 10% and $10,000 cap was not exactly what was used by our panelists today. So there's lots of other types of matches that can be structured that each can be powerful. It really depends on your organization and its needs. For example, a scaled match. One of the, it's not really a big drawback, but it's a slight drawback of the matching scheme I just mentioned, is that there is no financial incentive for a donor to document a gift more than $100,000. So other organizations, especially when they're running their second or third legacy challenges, have implemented a scaled match. This way, the bigger the gift that is made, the bigger the planned gift that's committed, the more matching funds will come. So there's no cap, but you might scale the match like this, something like 10% of the gift amount, the planned gift amount, is available in matching funds for gifts up to 100,000, 5% or more additional match for the increment between 101,000 and 999,000. And then if somebody does make $1 million or larger gift, 1% of that amount over the million would be matched. And again, this lets every gift, no matter the size, as it goes up in scope, generate a larger match. On the other hand, there's the flat match. For example, just $1,000 per planned gift, or even $500. Gallaudet University did this very successfully, just a flat $1,000 match. Friends of the Earth did this very successfully. In fact, Louisa Sizemore, who we later hired at GW, came from Friends of the Earth, and she was a single person planned giving office and implemented a program. She had 10 Heritage Society or Legacy Society members, and by the end of her program in that year, they'd gone up to 100. So again, a match like that can be very powerful. And finally, a matching table can work. A client I worked with at the Virginia Hospital Center Foundation, they felt that 10% was a little complicated and clunky, and to some degree it is. You do have to explain that to people. So they just simply had a table, $1,000 match for gifts under 10,000, 5,000 for gifts of 10 to 100, and 10,000 for gifts over 100,000. So again, lots of different match systems, and it's important to pick one that's going to work for you and your team. All right, sample results. Just real briefly, I mentioned the ACLU and EDF that more than doubled, or in one case went up 5 times when they ran their first challenges. At GW, we started our campaign with $250,000 in matching funds. Quickly, a couple of other donors stepped up, and our pool ultimately was $336,000. As you can see in the middle bar there, we would expect to raise, if we could use up all the matching funds, we would expect to raise at least $3.3 million, which is 10 times that matching fund amount. In reality, we raised $11.2 million, $11,195,000. Why? Because we had 5 gifts of $1 million or more, and multiple gifts between 100,000 and $1 million. That they weren't a 10-to-1 ratio; they were up to 100-to-1 or even more. $1 million gift, $10,000 matching amount that's capped at 10,000 is only 1% of $1 million gift. So that translates into $33 raised for every dollar of matching funds. And that's a very powerful number to share if you want to do a future legacy challenge with other donors who would put up matching money. It's also very powerful within your own institution for them to understand the power of a legacy challenge and why it's worthwhile to pursue one. Now, we want to introduce all the panelists for their presentations. And so I'm pleased to turn it over to John Jensen of the Washington National Cathedral.
Thank you, John. At the Washington National Cathedral, which I suspect most people have heard of, we currently have about a 400-member Cathedral Founders Society, and that's up from about 350 when we started this a little over a year ago. One of the first things I discovered when I came here is that we did not have a record of the value, estimated value, of estate gifts from probably 95% of the members. Now, that's not terribly uncommon in my experience with a lot of charities. I also looked at past annual planned giving revenue, and over the last 15 years, it looked like they had generated between $3.5 and $4 million a year. Now, what the cathedral has also done is they expanded the program, both in hiring me, and then a year or so after I started, about 3 years ago, we added an associate director. And we're in the middle of a $150 million comprehensive campaign. And one of the things that kept happening is they kept saying, well, what can you do about planned giving that will add to the campaign? Well, I suggested a legacy challenge, and they said, well, maybe when we're after the campaign, once that's done, we can do this. Well, suddenly they decided after about a year, maybe we ought to do it now. Okay, next. The way we set ours up is we managed to get 2 donors to contribute or pledge to contribute up to $1 million in match funds. And they would match 10% of any planned gift that was made up to $25,000. So that means they could make a $250,000 gift or more, and they would provide a $25,000 immediate match. And if the donor didn't want to give us the details about the gift, then would get a flat match of $1,000. Now, what the match covers is any new or unknown estate gifts, and we certainly got a good number of those. Any increase in the in prior known gift amounts. So if somebody increased the planned estate gift from $50,000 to $100,000, that additional $50,000 would count. And then anybody who had already told us that they'd put us in their estate plan, but hadn't given us the dollar amount, which is the vast majority, then those would count as well. So that was a nice way to kind of get information we couldn't get otherwise. Next. Now, we included all traditional types of planned gifts. They all qualified, whether it's a trust, an IRA, a will, a charitable remainder trust, basically any of these things. 15-month run. We started in late September of last year, and it's going to end at the end of this year at the same time that our comprehensive campaign is going to end up. No minimum age, no minimum gift size. Now, there was a concern that we'd get a lot of young people coming in, but that just hasn't happened, in part because the majority of our constituency is at the right stage of life for our purposes. And what we also did is we stressed endowment gifts. Now, interestingly enough, we had the former president of George Washington on our campaign cabinet. And he really pushed this, and I think he's absolutely right. Because what happens is the idea of an endowment gift is a natural fit for the donors because they want to help the institution long into the future. And it's a natural fit for us because we badly need long-term endowment gifts for a cathedral that's designed to last for 1,000 years. Next. Now, I've included some of the marketing materials in here, and there's a link. If you just Google Washington National Cathedral Legacy Challenge, this stuff will all come up with a good deal more. The thing that I think I'm most proud of is the video that Dean Randy Hollerith did, which is terrific. I also need to give credit to the Smithsonian because what we did is we saw the video that the secretary of the Smithsonian did. It was terrific. And when we saw that, we said, we want the same thing, but we're going to change the graphics and talk about the cathedral instead of the Smithsonian. And it was just really well done. So make sure you spend a few minutes and look at their video as well as ours. I think you'll find it very useful. Now, next. Key results, over 100 commitments to date. About $30 million in gift commitments to date, which means we've used up about 70, 72, 75% of the match. A large percentage came from current CFS members, and the vast majority were either unrestricted or restricted to a small number of approved endowments. So we had 7 or 8 of those. Basically, endowments to do things we're going to do forever. Music, building construction, program activities, worship, things like that. There were very few narrow gifts, and that was also quite important. Now, one of the things that I particularly was impressed by is the number of people who made gifts significantly above what the matching amount would cover. That just didn't seem to interfere with any of them, and I thought that was a really good sign. Next. Now, if anybody's ever been to the cathedral, you have probably either seen or heard of our favorite grotesque, which is Darth Vader. It's an institution that has a real sense of humor, and this is one more example of that. Now, I think Kara is coming on next.
Great, thank you, John. I should note that the Darth Vader gargoyle at the National Cathedral was sculpted by J. Hall Carpenter, who is a very good friend of mine and is responsible for 400 or so other gargoyles, angels, and other decorations at the cathedral. So glad that you featured his sculpture. Well, hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to participate in this webinar and share background on the Smithsonian's Legacy Challenge, which was launched in 2021 during the quiet phase of a new comprehensive campaign and during the celebration of the Smithsonian's 175th anniversary. Our goal was to raise 175 new bequests during the Legacy Challenge, which spanned 2 fiscal years from 2021 to 2023. This past September, we publicly launched the $2.5 billion Smithsonian campaign for our shared future. The Smithsonian Legacy Challenge was a campaign within a campaign, which is fairly common with legacy challenges, and an effective strategy to document deferred gifts prior to the public phase of the Smithsonian-wide campaign. Next. The Smithsonian Legacy Challenge provided a 10% match for documented deferred gifts based on a donor's current estimated value of their gift in writing. The documented gifts were new or increased bequests and beneficiary designations of IRAs, life insurance policies, and other financial accounts. The match was capped at $10,000 and was allocated to unrestricted funds for the Smithsonian's museums and research centers named in the donor's plans or for general support of the Smithsonian. Next. The Smithsonian's matching funds totaled $1.3 million, which came from internally allocated sources and a lead donor. In year 1 of the Legacy Challenge, we documented 84 gifts totaling $48.8 million. In year 2, we documented 94 gifts totaling $35 million, which ranged in size from $5,000 to $4.1 million, with an average gift size of $520,000. These gifts spanned the Smithsonian, and over 90% of the gifts supported 21 museums and research centers. Also, many of these gifts will create named endowments at the Smithsonian in the future. Next. It took a few years for the Smithsonian to fully embrace the potential of a legacy challenge. In the summer of 2019, so 2 years before the launch, we formed the Smithsonian Legacy Challenge Consortium, made up of fundraisers from across the institution, representing both large Smithsonian museums and research centers, like the National Air and Space Museum, as well as smaller units, like our National Museum of African Art. The consortium became our focused working group and helped adapt the Legacy Challenge framework to the Smithsonian's culture, establishing match parameters and defining the rules of the initiative. Not surprisingly, the consortium members also became the primary advocates for the Legacy Challenge within their unit. The consortium produced a recommendation for the whole organization to move forward and launch the Legacy Challenge. This was during the early months of the pandemic, so there was great interest and receptivity to new ideas and novel fundraising approaches. We created a marketing plan and defined our targeted audience for the Legacy Challenge during this pre-launch phase. We also conducted trainings for gift officers across the Smithsonian on the Legacy Challenge and on ways to initiate a planned gift conversation with donors. This gave everyone more confidence in having discussions about charitable estate planning with our loyal donors and committed volunteers. Next. We engaged Stelter to help us develop our marketing and communications plan for the Smithsonian Legacy Challenge. We created a marketing piece to launch the Legacy Challenge, featuring a cover letter from Smithsonian Secretary Lonnie Bunch that included a designed insert stating the matching gift details of the Legacy Challenge. This marketing example will be shared on the Stelter website alongside the recording of this presentation. In addition to integrating Legacy Challenge messaging in emails and ads, we also created a landing page on our website and produced 2 videos with mini matters, including one with Smithsonian Secretary Lonnie Bunch, which we'll share with you momentarily, and another with a Legacy Challenge donor. We focused on donor-centric gift conversations about the purpose of their gift to the Smithsonian, and then informed the donors of the matching gift opportunity. The matching gift was the cherry on top versus the core of the conversation. During this time, we also highlighted the Legacy Challenge at our annual Legacy Society luncheon. One of the Legacy Society members in the room was so inspired by this inventive way to encourage others to invest in the future of the Smithsonian that she contributed a substantial gift to grow our pool of matching funds. Next. Jump forward to 2024. This past spring at our annual Legacy Society luncheon, we announced the successful conclusion of the Legacy Challenge and provided attendees a written report that included a list of Legacy Challenge supporters. We also communicated the success of the Legacy Challenge with Smithsonian leadership and expressed appreciation to gift officers for their partnership in achieving our shared goals. There are many steps to close out a Legacy Challenge, including distributing the matching funds. So I encourage anyone in considering a Legacy Challenge to map out and plan the timeline that includes these administrative tasks. Legacy Challenges are a wonderful way to bring gift officers together to collaborate on deferred gifts for your organization. It's a lot of work, so it's important to celebrate and share the success and impact of your Legacy Challenge widely. Next. So before I turn it over to Kent, we wanted to share the Smithsonian Legacy Challenge video featuring Secretary Lonnie Bunch.
I'm Lonnie Bunch, Secretary of the Smithsonian. This year, as we commemorate our 175th anniversary, I'd like to invite you to connect with the Smithsonian's past, present, and future through the Smithsonian Legacy Challenge. For 175 years, the Smithsonian has told America's stories. We've sparked curiosity, inspired imagination, and shared with our public the wonders of our 21 museums, our education and research centers, our libraries, and the National Zoo. I'm sure you have your favorite places among them. The Smithsonian is as much about today and tomorrow as it is about yesterday. An engine of innovation, a trusted source of knowledge, a reminder of our shared heritage and shared aspirations. We have our eyes on the future because we know that together we have the power to shape it. I want the Smithsonian to be here for future generations, thriving and serving the nation and the world. And I believe you do as well. The Smithsonian Legacy Challenge is your opportunity to join us in this vital work, to help build a better shared future for the Smithsonian and the communities we serve. You can participate by naming the Smithsonian in your will or as a beneficiary of your retirement plan. Your gift will enable the Smithsonian to build on our legacy, to discover and delight, to unlock the mysteries of our universe, to protect the future of our country and our planet. Imagine the educational programs, research, and innovation that your gift might launch. At this point, I'd like to express my deep appreciation to Lynn Hawlick for her visionary commitment to the Legacy Challenge. Lynn has pledged $500,000 to encourage supporters like you to include the Smithsonian in your estate plans and document your future gifts. I am grateful for the visionaries, scientists, curators, educators, visitors, and donors who have enabled us to reach this milestone of 175 years. And to the wonderful donors who have already contributed generously to the Legacy Challenge, your generosity and dedication will help us innovate, impact, and inspire for years to come. I believe that you too can help us understand the past, act in the present, and provide for the future. Please accept the challenge and make it part of your legacy to ensure the Smithsonian's next 175 years and beyond.
Well, I hope everyone is inspired. Whoops. I hope everyone's inspired to support the Smithsonian. Feel free to reach out to me after the presentation. But in the meantime, I'll turn it over to Kent.
Amazing video. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, Nathan Stelter, Jen Lennon, and Stelter for bringing us together. I think we'll all agree that our best ideas in this business of caring for our institutions come from each other. So this is an amazing opportunity to talk about something that is quite transformational. Just a little bit about Episcopal High School, just outside of DC, just a few miles south of DC. 130-acre campus, 450 students, 100% boarding, students from around the country and around the world. Next. With respect to the challenge, think of the architecture, and you're going to build it, and you can make mistakes and try new things, but you first have to secure the matching donors, and it doesn't matter. It's just a leap of faith. You're going to get what you need, and if you need more, you'll get it. So secure the donors. Think of the concept. What is it going to be? In our case, it was 10% with a $25,000 match. And bring in the key stakeholders, beginning with your colleagues, volunteer leaders, administrators at the school, and then volunteer leaders, and educate them. And then think about how you're going to communicate, and think about segmenting the market, not just sending one message as you already do, segmenting and touch each different constituency, give them the merit they deserve. And if it involves a handwritten note on a collection of letters, just as a reminder to show them what you're doing now for the institution, do that. And then think about events. And thanks to the recent years, we're all pretty savvy online, and it's reasonable cost, and you can bring together people that represents the institution and volunteers to share the story in this opportunity. And then the best advice I ever got was pick up the phone. We have a flurry of ways to communicate, and most of it is just reaching for that phone. And if you strike out, follow up all the ways that you know how to follow up with. Next. We began with a letter with the leadership on the left column of the page, from the head of the trustees to the campaign cabinet to the advancement committee of the trustees, signed by 2 members of our legacy society, the Bell Society, asking people to consider stepping up in this special way that benefits the school now and in the future. Next. One thing about this whole world of legacy challenges is that plan giving is a solitary family endeavor. It's quiet. This legacy challenge takes it out of that quiet space and makes it a collective effort to benefit your institutions. And we chose, beyond that letter, to have a 2-pager. And thank you to the ACLU and GW and John Kendrick, because we too have that similar graphic. And we also drive people to the website. We summarize what the challenge is. You might have to say the same concept over and over again, because people aren't thinking about this on a daily basis. And although it's simple math, it is different. So just be gentle and restate it and say, we had a matching funds here, and if you step up to the institution and mark in time with a future gift, you'll get an immediate gift to put toward, in our case, one of the priorities of our current campaign, which is a $150 million comprehensive campaign, and we're in the final phase of it. It's a 7-year effort, and we've already yielded $7 million since we quietly began this legacy challenge about 7 months ago. Also, it's important to showcase other gifts that have been given within the context of the legacy challenge. So that's what the bubble circles on the backside of this 2-pager. So you really, just like the shampoo, you have to wash, rinse, and repeat. You're going to think about the same simple thing and restate it wherever you are, be it virtual or in person on the phone, and keep it simple. Next, please. So again, this is your best friend, this simple graphic that you've seen before. Next, please. And again, I'm restating basically the math and the opportunity of this legacy challenge at the top of this letter of intent. Next, please. And again, the mechanics are 10% match, and we decided just to go with $25,000 as our cap because we've had 20 gifts thus far. We knew we had some bigger gifts at the top of the pyramid, so we wanted a more substantial match. But really, whatever your bucket of funds are and the match, just stick to it, commit to it. Next, please. And under the small matters that matter department, this slide has a section of an envelope, the outer envelope and the incoming envelope. Use that space as an opportunity to state what this is all about. Your legacy by returning this envelope, and their future, your institution's future, or in our case, our student and faculty and community's future. And then on the reply envelope, you can say that count me in or count us in. Next, please. I mentioned, think virtual, but if you're in a space and you can say the same good, have the same graphics, the same concepts of the challenge, put it up on a banner and take it with you. This was in an auditorium for reunion weekend where we had a mini launch this past summer, and I saw people looking at it, and it helps to remind people what this is about, to supplement what they've read or received by email. So already since this graphic was created, we continue to get gifts, sometimes new gifts, sometimes clarifying gifts. So we chose to email first and then follow up with the hard copy letter because we're all inundated with messages and we wanted to give them a heads up that they'd be receiving it. And we sent it to the loyal donors and those who have given a certain amount within the last 5 years. We didn't send it to all constituents, but we will have the message in magazines and other emails that go out to the larger population. So again, bringing everybody in the fold so they own it and understand it and they're comfortable with it, and make it simple, and it'll serve your institution well. We also had a graduate step forward to do a webinar like this on the challenge, an expert in the planned giving space, class of 71. And finally, we're all in the business of fundraising, and planned giving is the other strong pillar to this fundraising realm, and it should be part of every conversation. Back to you, John.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kent. Moving on to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight a couple of other things that may be of interest to our attendees. First of all, thank you so much, John Jensen and Kara and Kent, for those terrific overviews. One thing that we haven't really touched on until now is the fact that legacy challenges can be very powerful if you run subsequent ones. ACLU has run, I think it's 7 at this point. A Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. has run several, and they can build upon each other and help to continually increase the level of planned gifts. So at GW, 2 years after that first campaign, which by the way corresponded with closing out our comprehensive campaign, We did another one. This one lasted the entire fiscal year. It achieved a 40% increase in the number of gifts versus the highest number of gifts in any previous fiscal year. It had a 22-to-1 return on lead donors' investment. And I wanted to highlight that number. That is a decrease from the 2017 campaign. Why? Well, the 2017 campaign captured a lot of low-hanging fruit. We had $5 million commitments that were documented, which really pumped up that return on lead donors' investment to the 33-to-1 ratio. 22-to-1 is still quite powerful if you're trying to go out and recruit people to give you matching funds. And in this case at GW, because we had had such good success, we wanted to launch another one quickly rather than go through the process of recruiting new donors to put up the matching funds. We went ahead and used what was unusual for us, and that was 2 realized unrestricted bequests that had come in. We checked with the families. They were fine with us using it for this purpose. We did use the names of those deceased donors as the people who had contributed the funds, and we had good success. And very, very briefly with Virginia Hospital Center Foundation, they're a much smaller organization. They more than doubled their results. In this case, I know that, for many of you, the Smithsonian and Washington National Cathedral are huge organizations, much, much bigger than yours. Virginia Hospital Center, it's a regional hospital and much smaller. The campaign was actually led by a very experienced part-time staff member with both major and plan giving responsibilities. So a legacy challenge can be accomplished by smaller shops. And as I mentioned earlier, they happen to use a matching gift table, not a percentage. For them, the percentage, just was not easy to explain. So they went with the table. Let's move on to the next one. Now we're going to share some lessons learned. We're going to go through Kara Kent, John Jensen, and myself, and then we'll get to your audience questions. I see already a number of them in the chat. We do want to get to those, but we want to hit a few highlights. And Kara, over to you.
Great. Well, as a parent of a baseball player, I know there are many lessons learned in the game of baseball. Same goes for legacy challenges. Here are a few of my lessons learned from legacy challenges at both American University and the Smithsonian. First, legacy challenges are a wonderful way to enhance gift officer collaboration within your organization. There is a well-defined common goal that can further inspire gift officers to initiate conversations about charitable estate planning with donors. It's also a great opportunity to reinforce gift officer training on gift planning basics and how to talk to donors about their estate plans. Another lesson was to get creative with sources of matching funds. For example, consider if there are internal sources of funds that could be allocated for the match, such as unanticipated and undesignated bequest distributions, or a portion of the annual budget assigned to your plan giving program. Also, when you're targeting donors for matching funds, prioritize donors who give unrestricted funds and have a high degree of trust in the organization. They may be not necessarily assigned to other gift officers, might be more open to giving widely across an institution without it being designated. I also encourage you to promote the Legacy Challenge to a captive audience, such as at annual giving or Legacy Society events. This might inspire donors to come forward not only to share news of their new deferred gift intentions, but also to support the match, which is what happened at the Smithsonian. A lesson that became more apparent as I engaged in gift conversations with donors about the Legacy Challenge was the value of having a fixed amount for match instead of a percentage of the current estimated value. John Kendrick just highlighted these options earlier. There would be less calculating of the matching gift, and it would simplify the talking points on the Legacy Challenge from my perspective. The maximum amount of the match could also be lower, such as $5,000 instead of $10,000, which is still a meaningful amount and could expand the number of documented deferred gifts as part of the Legacy Challenge. So you needn't worry about having a small pool. Finally, and this is a big one for me, avoid becoming transactional when talking to donors about the Legacy Challenge. There are so many details to share with the donors regarding a Legacy Challenge, and gift offers can easily lose sight of the more essential conversation, which is sharing the impact of the donor's gift through their estate plans and helping the donor create a lasting legacy at your organization. So always remember to ground the conversation and approach in relational fundraising. Legacy challenges are an effective strategy to document more gifts at your organization, but it's ultimately a way to steward and celebrate a donor's future investment in the organization. And now Kent will share some of his lessons learned.
Most of all, plan early and have a plan, but be ready to adapt, try new things, secure the donors. And by starting early, you'll allow yourself time to secure those donors, and you might have to add in additional funds. And think of one of my coaches in my life, Al Halliday, up in the Northeast at Harvard, said the whole goal is to feed the awareness gap. So that speaks to your colleagues, to people who don't think of planned giving every day. So everything you do feeds that awareness gap. Think of this as concentric circles. Begin with yourself, the people who are going to support the match, your colleagues, the leadership, and go out and take care of each circle as you proceed through this challenge. Keep it simple. And just as planned giving is very complex, you're going to have different facets to the Legacy Challenge, and keeping it more simple helps proceed through the challenge. And you don't necessarily have to have a finish to it. Ours is just over a year, but some people pick finite times because deadlines sometimes help people. And finally, this is so extraordinary that in the annual ritual of giving and annual funds and solicitations and days of giving, this is a moment where you can be part of that, not even with your own money, except out in time. And by stepping forward, the generosity of these matching donors will allow for that. So good luck, everybody, and let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to help answer any of them. I think I'm tossing to John Jensen or John Kendrick. John Jensen's mic is.
Thank you. That's very helpful, Kent. Let me share some of the lessons that we learned at the Cathedral. First of all, the idea of a challenge is very effective at motivating donors, and it gets at details we don't usually obtain, at least it's much more difficult to obtain, which is essentially the dollar value of the gifts or the estimated gifts. Now, part of that helps us to know who we should be stewarding more. Part of it increases the odds these gifts will actually come through if people share this kind of information. But there's another really important aspect of this, and that is that planned giving tends to be a portion of the fundraising effort that we all have that is much more difficult to convince management and senior staff of the value of the program and how much you're really influencing, because we all have senior managers or board members who think that these things are going to happen anyway. They're not right, but that's what they think. And by doing something like this, it allows you to document a heck of a lot of information. And one of the key things that I learned very early on, of course, we all know that residuary estate gifts, are the biggest gifts we'll ever get, far, far larger than the typical specific dollar bequest. The problem is, in a Legacy Challenge context, people don't know how to value those residuary gifts. So let's say they put you in their estate plan from their IRA or the residue of their estate. They don't know how long they're going to live, and they don't know what that value is going to be. And so if they've got to stop and figure that out, they're just not going to respond. Now, the way I addressed that, and I addressed it really pretty much from the beginning as I began to learn about this, is I told them to use today's value. And what I explained is that nobody knows what it's going to be like, depending on what the market is over the years, how long we actually live, any of that sort of thing. What we do know is that if you have 100 people that tell you they have put you in their estate plans, some of them will end up not giving you anything. Some will give you exactly what they had expected or pledged. Some will give you far more. But over time, what we find is from the people who do make a gift, from that 100 group of people initially, you're going to end up getting more money from those who do make a gift than what everybody had pledged. And so in effect, it averages out over time. And it's a really good way to kind of get them to give you that kind of information. It also can be helpful as you're looking at them in terms of what your current fundraising might be. I agree with Kent. You really want to think through your process in advance, particularly accrediting policies. Next. Repetition in marketing is the challenge key. You want to repeat this over and over and over because people, they kind of lose track of it and they sort of forget the details, especially if you have multiple challenges going on, as many of us do. It was interesting that I found that most of our Cathedral Founders Society members, our Legacy Society, assumed this didn't apply to them. And they assumed that because they had told us that we are in their estate plans, they assumed we knew the details, when in fact we knew less than 5 or 10% of them. Once we explained this to these members in person or otherwise, they were very, very responsive to the challenge. And given the size of the institution and our normal fundraising, we did very well with this so far, and we expect to do even better as the year goes on. Next. Now, what I also discovered is that having a 10% match absolutely did not stop bigger gifts. You'll recall that we maxed out what the match is going to be at $25,000 for a gift of $250,000 or more. We had a good number of people who ended up giving us or committing to us that they were making estate gifts that were much, much in excess of $250,000. As Kent suggested, design your response form carefully and focus on endowment and long-term giving and impact. That really helps. Additionally, get your major gift staff to buy in. This is key because they have relationships with a lot of these people who are making larger current gifts and are also going to put you in their estate plans, but are even less likely to tell you, I think, what the value of those are. Oftentimes, these are your prime prospects. The whole process is an incredibly effective way to get plan giving buy-in kind of throughout the institution. So you want to kind of stress that as well and give regular reports. And once you've prepared this sort of thing, prepare some statistical information as well. How much is restricted? How much is unrestricted? Coming from men, from women? What's the average age? All of these sorts of things. It demonstrates the value of plan giving and what this is all about. It's a terrific program. John?
Great. Thank you, John. I'm going to be very brief and because we do want to get to the Q&A. So just 3 main points. When designing a legacy challenge, do think carefully about your organization, its unique structure, its strengths, its needs, the types of gifts donors typically make. Think about what you heard today from our 3 panelists, and then you can begin to structure a program that will work for you. Select a matching plan that works well for your organization, that you're comfortable selling internally and explaining to donors, and gives enough incentive for potential donors. And lastly, and this is one that really hasn't been mentioned much, after your legacy challenge is over, we found it very effective at GW to send a survey to donors who participated in the challenge and to those who did not. It helps to better understand what components of the challenge succeeded and those could be improved. In the GW case, it was the letter and major gift officer solicitations that worked the best, even better than our marketing materials. And also, if you ask a question, you can find out and perhaps identify some donors who might be willing to step forward in the future to provide matching funds, which can be very wonderful. I do want to add one other lesson learned, which Kara alluded to. Do take the time, and Kent as well, do take the time to really go over this with your back office staff, with your operations team. At the end of the day, marketing programs are fantastic, but they are terrible if you don't execute them well. And so that matching money better go to where you all have said it would go. And it would be ideal to send a report to that donor and let them know that their $10,000 match has now been received by the Department of English or by whichever organizational unit you have they have designated. So those are some lessons learned. Let's go on to the audience Q&A. And Nathan, I see you're back on, and Jen, and over to you.
Yeah, so we have a lot of questions. We'll try to get through as many as we can. Nathan, I'm going to have you help me. So we're going to go back and forth. So first of all, how do matches work when you think about revocable versus irrevocable commitments? How do you handle that for anyone?
And let me quickly start and turn it back over to John or whatever. But as John Jensen said, you know, if you're looking at a pool of 100 donors, some are not going to make a gift because they forgot. Some, you know, they ran out of money. But others put you in for 10%. And this was 10 years ago, where it's now, but 10 years in the future, markets have gone up. The value of that residual bequest has gone up significantly. So, you know, we didn't worry about it. And by the way, this is not probably all that different for those of you who do count the value of planned gifts. Already, you really don't, you don't know exactly what you're going to get. But again, our experience is that we're only told about maybe what 20 or 30% of the number of planned gifts that will be coming in. So, you know, even if you're off with your calculations, odds are this program will have greatly, you know, increased the number of planned gifts coming in.
John, let me add that we feel pretty much the same way, that we will take people at their word. We don't care whether it's a restricted gift, a gift that is committed irrevocably, such as a charitable gift annuity or irrevocable charitable remainder trust, or if it's simply a pledge. Because one of the things that we know, in fact, not even a pledge in a formal sense, but a decision to include us in their estate plans. Because we know that when people share this information with us, that increases the odds that gift is actually going to come through on a much higher basis. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yeah, good
Quick
insight.
question. Did anyone think about using an unrestricted realized bequest for your matching pool fund?
Yes. So at the Legacy Challenge that I helped carry out at American University, that's exactly what we did. It was a couple of bequests that we pulled together for the funds. So that's a very easy way to sort of build that matching pool.
And same at GW for our second, the 2019 Legacy Challenge.
Our good friend, another DC person, Gail Union, had an observation or question here. Part of the beauty of the Legacy Challenge is its simplicity. It seems to be more difficult to explain to donors the scaled match. Was this another challenge?
So I definitely highlighted that. I will say, just in my own experience, as I entered into these conversations, I sort of would have appreciated a simpler approach and just taking a fixed amount. I think, you know, if my organization were to do another Legacy Challenge, that's what I would recommend, because I think you just want to you want the heart of the conversation to be about that future gift and the legacy that they're creating, the impact that they're creating, and not get mired into all the details of the Legacy Challenge. That really is, for me, the Legacy Challenge, this matching gift, it's really a way to just celebrate the gift and to further steward them versus it being the heart of the conversation. So a fixed amount for me, I think, gets you out of the weeds and gets you more to the real gift that you're talking about.
And I might add that a table, I think, can be, you know, very effective, where you don't have to do math. It's just you look up the amount of your gift on the table and you can see what the match will be. Gail, to your question, the ACLU very successfully did a scaled match. You know, they discovered, as did GW, that there were a number of people who said, you know, we have you in our will for much more than the 100,000. But we're just going to go ahead and document the 100,000 in writing because, you know, a little skittish about documenting a large bequest. We don't want you to, you know, we want to under promise and over deliver. And so they documented lower amounts, and the scale was an attempt to do that. And by the way, ACLU, Mohammed Zaidi is a great guy. I'm sure he would talk with many of you. He's done these seminars as well. You know, they tried the scaled match. They've done various different ones. Their gift office, Plan Giving office, I think has grown from something like 3 or 4 people to more than 15 over time as they've done these challenges. So, you know, it's worth experimenting and determining. But fundamentally, I'm with you, Kara. I think, you know, keeping it simple is preferable.
We have someone that says they're working on a match right now. The donor putting up the match money is going to match each planned gift at 50%,
Wow.
which is great for the donors, but this person's concerned that the match money is going to run out. So how would you go about building a case to cap that match?
Let me take a crack at that. And I've talked to quite a few people about just this issue when I was kind of working on my own legacy match with John and with others. And that is that 10% seems to be sort of the magic point. At 10%, it's enough to be serious. But for those that have tried higher amounts, you know, 15, 20%, my understanding is it hasn't produced much of a difference. In terms of running out of the money, the match, let me add a suggestion on that. If you are planning on doing some sort of capital or comprehensive campaign, we've always got donors that we know are going to make sizable gifts to that campaign, usually right off the bat, you know, early on, leadership gifts. It's not difficult if you think of a legacy challenge as part of that process to get them to agree to make their gift in the context of a match. So in effect, they're offering to match the first $1 million or $2 million, whatever it might be. And you can then have them direct their own money, their own match, to wherever they want. At the same time, they're motivating other people to try to kind of join in. Because getting the match, it can be very difficult if you're not in a campaign setting.
Just sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just real quick, I think that, you know, some of the material that we've all presented today might be helpful to share with the donor as well. You know, we've had good results, many millions of dollars raised with a cap of 25,000 and or 10%. So that might be helpful in terms of convincing the potential donor.
Does having the cash match for the Plan Giving campaign ever impact or cannibalize the annual fund campaign or the year-end giving campaigns, since it's a similar pool of donors? Do you run into issues with the annual or the capital?
I didn't find that. I think that the donors really just viewed it as additive, and it really just strengthened their relationship to the institution. And like a lot of planned gifts, it leads to higher annual gifts, leads to major gifts, leads to all sorts of great gifts. So I think it's all additive.
Yeah, I would quote Russell James. You can't get through a webinar without quoting Russell James, who has data that shows that you know, people who make planned gifts end up increasing their annual gifts. You know, we had a new director or vice president of development at GW when she came in for our 2019 challenge. She was concerned about cannibalization. So on the back of our gift confirmation form, we actually had an annual fund pledge form, and the donor was required to either check a box with showing their annual gift for the upcoming year. The Plan Giving donor participating in the Legacy Challenge had to either mark a box and say how much they were going to give, or check a box saying that you know, they were declining to state an amount at this time. And fortunately, we tried to really minimize the impact on the Plan Giving part of it, but you know, it didn't seem to affect things. And I would not, frankly, recommend that you require that somebody, you know, document an annual fund gift at the same time. I would recommend, as I think everybody on the call would, that when you are having these conversations, you know, this is still an integrated process for your institution. If you can get an outright gift instead of a planned gift, do that. If you can get a large annual gift, do that. If you can do all three, then, you know, so much the better.
We have time for one more, Nathan.
Okay, yeah, I see we had a couple questions here around audience selection. And I guess, Kent, the first one was for you around the challenge webinar that you did. How did you identify the audience that you invited to that?
It was the same audience that received letter So the loyalists, and then decide what amount and what time period. So ours, I think, was $1,000 within the last 5 years. But you can pick any number, and you want to decide how many people you want to mail to, what percent of your constituency. But loyal donors are the first best to reach out to.
Okay. Yeah. And Diane had a similar question, and maybe if there's any other input from anybody else on just determining, how do you determine that core audience? Who receives the marketing materials? I don't know if it's budget driven, if it's capacity driven, but curious if there's any input from the panel.
Nathan, let me add my thoughts to that, because Kent's working for a school that has kind of a defined constituency that's fairly limited. The Cathedral is a bit larger, and I've worked for other charities much larger in scope. What we did is we focused largely based on age and to a lesser extent on gift history. Obviously, our major donors we included as a matter of course, but the primary folks that we marketed to were people that were over 70. And I think for budget reasons, we started at about 73 or 74, going out to all of our recent donors. And then electronically, because it was so cheap, we also went out to a large number of donors that had lapsed over time. Because as you know, as people get older, they're more prone to lapsing, even if they continue to have an interest in the organization.
Good point. Good point. Jen, I think we're at time. I know we had a bunch of other questions we couldn't get to.
Yeah, we do have a bunch of other questions. I did want to just throw one more out there, just because I think it's for clarification, that you all do recommend including current legacy donors that you already know about in the campaigns.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay, and yes, we are at time. Thank you so much, everyone. If we didn't get to your question, all of the panelists have graciously agreed to allow you to reach out to them personally. So their email address and their phone numbers are on the screen, and you will receive these slides. So you don't have to jot that down right now. You'll get that tomorrow. If you have any questions about Stelter, our webinar series, or our solutions or products, you can reach out to Nathan or myself, or visit us at stelter.com. Like I said in the beginning, we recorded it. You'll get the recording. You'll get a PDF of the handouts. We've got some sample campaign materials from some of the campaigns you learned about today. And I will send you an email to give you access to all those, and they will also be on our webinars page. And with that, that ends our time today. Thank you all for joining us. I want to thank the entire panel. They spent a lot of time together putting this together, working together themselves, working with me, and we just so appreciate it.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Such great information, such practical advice, and you could tell by the amount of questions everybody had too.
Thank
Right.
you,
So
Nathan.
much
Thank
for
you.
bringing us together.
And everyone, look for your invitation to register for Pamela Jones Davidson's webinar next month. And hopefully we see you all at CGP here coming up in just 2 weeks, I think. Right? So we hope you see you there. And thanks again for joining us. Have a great afternoon.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye.